The World Bank has just upgraded India's growth forecast to 7% for FY 24-25 from the earlier projection of 6.6%. To decode what this means, what has led to the growth upgrade really, we are joined by Country Director India of the World Bank, Mr. August Kwame. Thank you very much for your time. First, for our viewers to understand, what has led to this upgrade really in the growth projection?
Thank you, Sakshi. As we know, the recent numbers that were released were very positive for India's growth going forward with a strong first quarter. And it's no surprise that we expect growth to be stronger than we had initially thought in our last IDU. And one of the reasons why we have upgraded our forecast from 6.6 to 7 for the coming year is that we think global trade is recovering and will recover a bit faster than we had initially anticipated. And by the way, trade is something that we cover extensively in the IDU, and I will invite your readers to look at the section on trade because it's very rich in analysis. Mm-hmm. So if global trade picks up, India will benefit from it. And we know that India has been doing very well despite a very challenging global environment, but if this global environment improves slightly, it will benefit India, and we hope this will be a trend, this trend will continue. Right. The second reason why we upgraded our forecast is that agriculture is also doing pretty well. Agriculture situation was very difficult last year, but with the monsoon and the fact that farmers have been patient and stayed the course, and the price of fertilizers have also helped. We think that there will be a pickup in agricultural growth this coming year. So these two, trade and agriculture, will really help growth.
All right. So you see an upgrade really as far as trade and agriculture is concerned, and so therefore this upgrade, that projection that has come in. But for those wondering that, look, the report does mention some untapped potential as far as trade is concerned. How can India then diversify the export basket at large to hit that $1 trillion ambitious milestone by 2030 as far as exports is concerned?
Yeah, India wants to achieve 1 trillion merchandise export by 2030. We think it is achievable. India has a lot of success in export of IT goods and services. India has been very successful in exporting pharmaceuticals. And learning from that, we think the time has come from India to expand its export basket into other areas, including areas where India was doing very well in the past but not doing so great now, such as textile, apparel, and maybe new goods such as green technology goods that are coming up as a potential area for growth, for export growth. So to achieve that kind of diversification, there is a need for India to connect to global value chains in these new areas more proactively. Mm-hmm. And there are new export markets that are also emerging. For example, if you look at global growth today, a good share of global growth is coming from the middle-income countries and low-income countries, generally called the Global South. And this is an untapped market for export. India could export a lot more to the Global South. And by doing that, India will export goods that are perhaps not so high-tech, but they will need a lot of workers to produce those goods, and therefore India's trade will become increasingly more job creating. So there are a lot of potential out there, and we're very optimistic about India's future in terms of becoming a global export, a source of export for the global economy.
Speaking of jobs, really, the latest study by the World Bank mentions that the labor market has improved, but youth unemployment remains elevated. How do you think India can address this? Yes, measures were announced in the budget, but how do you think we can see implementation on the ground?
Well, first, let's focus on the positive. Youth unemployment was at a peak during the pandemic or immediately after the pandemic, and it has declined significantly, coming from well over 20, close to 30%, to now 16.5, 17%. It is still high, 17%, but it is much lower than what it was a few years ago. So there is progress. Now, where to go from here? Yes, of course, India will want a youth unemployment that is much lower because it's, India has a young population, many of them well-trained, and they can power the economy going forward. To get more young people to work, there is, instead of looking at it directly as, okay, how can I give a job to the young people on the street today, which is impossible. You can't do that. Mm-hmm. It's important to look at it as what will make the economic environment in India create more jobs for the young people. And what will make the economic environment create more jobs would be firms that could emerge, and create jobs, or firms that exist already, they could expand and create jobs for the young people. Or the young people could become entrepreneurs on their own and create jobs for others. For those things to happen, there are a number of policies that the government has envisaged already, and there's some investment that the government has also envisaged, some expenditure items that are already in the budget to encourage first job seekers or first-time job seekers to get a job or to help them get a job. There are some cross-cutting policies, such as making access to land for investment purposes easier, making it easier for firms to create firms, reducing regulations or making regulations easier and more predictable, reducing the requirement at the time it takes to create a job, maybe reducing logistics costs for firms, because this may reduce, if they face high logistic costs, it may reduce their ability to create jobs faster. So there are a number of things, and of course there is the skills agenda, providing skills, providing opportunity for all workers, from the lowest skills to higher skilled workers, to have opportunities to acquire more skills and to learn. In vocational training centers, in ITIs, or in skill centers. So there are a number of reforms that are already envisaged, and some of them are already being implemented to help create more jobs, especially for the young people.
Right. Now, the medium-term outlook remains positive, but what about the long-term outlook? You have said the wheel is turning for India. So take our viewers through that detail, of course, and the fact that, look, how can India continue to outperform and lead the global south, as it were?
So here, this is a crystal ball question, the long term, but we're very bullish about India in the short, medium, and long term, because in the recent years, India has shown that it can do well despite a very challenging global environment. India is now the fastest growing large economy in the world and has been for the past couple of years. This bodes well for the future. So it means that even if we can't be very optimistic about the global environment, we can still be optimistic about India. And so the prospect for India in the long term, I think, is very encouraging. India wants to become a developed country or high-income country by 2047. This is probably very likely to happen, but it will require a lot of effort, and probably more effort than you and I can imagine. It takes a lot of effort to sustain growth at what is needed to achieve that, which is, in our estimate, 8%. India has grown at 8% in the past year. Can India sustain that growth in the future? We think it's possible, but it will require a lot of effort, and it will be all hands on deck, I think.
All right. Thank you so much for this special interaction. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you.